Welcome to True Crime Tuesday. In this episode, a former law enforcement officer and a current 911 dispatcher are here to do justice. No, not for the victims, but for podcast listeners everywhere. This podcast comes with a solemn warning. All other true crime podcasts suck. Trust me, we'll listen to all of them. We have been listening to true crime podcasts all week to kind of help us get a lot of background information. It's one way that I help myself research for the show, because I have to commute over 10 hours a week. So if I'm going to prepare for a show, I have to do it while driving. And believe me, I also do, just so you don't think that I'm copying off of other podcasts, I assure you that I am also reading articles on my phone while I am driving at top speed through the dark of night. That's, like I said, I'm John. I'm a 911 dispatcher. I'm active in the field. I've handled initial 911 calls for many missing persons. I've had to gather information for missing children. And joining me, as always, is my ex-wife, Kendra Drama. She's a former sheriff's deputy in sunny South Florida. Kendra, as a patrol deputy, had to be the first person on the scene at many missing persons cases. And what makes us different than other true crime shows, we know what law enforcement agencies can and will do when they're in a situation in which they're looking for a missing person or investigating a crime. No, we're not detectives. We're not Sherlock Holmes and some kind of phone answering Watson. We're not that. But we are better off than the ladies with the oh so critical attitudes towards law enforcement and their Ugg boots and their soy milk lattes. And we're here to give you a different take on a true crime case. So we're here to talk about the disappearance of Sara Anne Wood. She's a girl that went missing in 1993. She was the face of a huge missing persons campaign. This is in Western New York, if I didn't mention. She disappeared. She was sort of a poster child for what is happening to youth in America. Where are your children? I don't know, Kendra, I don't know if you remember this, because I think you might have been not born for this.
Correct.
But it used to be the case that, you know, on TV, it would be at night, a commercial would come on and say, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Because that's how we were all raised in the 90s. It's like, well, whatever, we're going to go do whatever. Like, instead of the internet and phones and technology, we had each other, and we had friends, and we had bicycles that investigators would recover later, and white vans prowling the neighborhood, and all of your friends would be featured on next season of Unsolved Mysteries. That was the 90s. We didn't have the internet. And so anyway, Sara Wood was this big case for children going missing, and she was the face of a big campaign. But as it turns out, when we were investigating, and by investigating I mean learning and listening to other breakdowns of this case, we learned that actually several other young persons were involved in this disappearance. Kendra, do you want to take it linearly, go all the way back to 86, or do you want to start with Sara Wood and move forward and then go backwards, or do you just want to haphazardly mention victims and random events and in a totally incoherent fashion so that no one is sure what's a lie, what's the truth, and that it's not an enjoyable listening experience at all? I did open the show by saying we would be the most enjoyable podcast. We're almost 20 minutes in. We haven't helped anyone enjoy their lives, so I leave it to you.
I've enjoyed my life so far, and I'm the one that matters. So there you go. I can't even say that without laughing. I'm sorry. As you mentioned at the top of the episode, all other podcasts do suck, and I would like to be different than them. Also, because they all kind of went down the same format. In addition to
one of them read directly from Wikipedia. I wish I had that one handy. It was like murder, marriage, happiness, and disappearance or something. And I'm just like, because I read the Wikipedia on this to kind of get primed to know like who the key players were and the timeline of events. I'm like, she is literally reading like from the Wikipedia. Like when she mentions that Sara Anne Wood was 90 pounds or whatever, I'm like, that is literally her demographics from the Wikipedia page.
And who needs to know that?
No,
it doesn't matter.
No, but she came up with a brilliant idea of reading Wikipedia, and I don't think I heard any ads on that, but I hope she never gets a sponsor.
So this case was also a viewer submission. I have vaguely heard of it before for whatever reason. Given the fact that she was the poster child for this missing children's like parenting campaign, you'd think that I would know, but I didn't know much about it. And she gets a lot of the attention because she became this like icon. It's not the right word. You know what I mean? For missing children. But there were other victims in this case that are connected to the suspect, and they're all atrocious. So I think that we should give them each their own, little tidbit in order. So let's
I
go
agree.
chronologically. Yeah.
Go ahead. So the problem with going chronologically, if there is a problem, and I'm not necessarily saying there is one, is that this is a case where we're not necessarily sure what's true.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll kind of talk about why that is. And it's not just because I don't have a lot of credibility as a podcaster, but it's also because our suspect in this case, someone who would confess to things, he may not have a lot of credibility either. So if you want to give him full faith and credit, you could do that, and you could go back as early as 1986. That may be giving him more credit, though. He's, without ruining the case, he may be somebody who kind of gets off on telling tales and leading people on. And so it's possible. Before the show, we discussed this. I thought it was interesting, the distinct possibility that he has confessed to more things than he has done, but also he has done more things than he has confessed to, if that makes sense.
Yes. That's something we'll get into it a little bit later, but that he fits all of the like he does the same things that other people who've done false confessions do, and you'll see what we mean when we get into the case a little bit more. But according to our suspect, who is Lewis Lent Jr., by the way, after he's and eventually convicted of Sarah's murder, he confesses to a couple of other child murders. The first one being in 1986, 13-year-old Tammy McCormick. He says that he abducted her about a mile from her home, and he doesn't go into too great of detail, but essentially he captures her, does whatever his sick, depraved mind wants to do with her, and then murders her and dumps her body somewhere. He doesn't disclose where that is. When he does disclose body locations, they're usually wrong. Well, they are all wrong. Spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A few years later, in November of 92, he confesses to the abduction and murder of James Lusher, a 16-year-old boy. Again, he was taken very close to his home, abused and murdered by Lent, allegedly. In 1996, excuse me, I'm going backwards now. In 1990, he says that he committed another murder of a 12-year-old boy named James Bernardo. This was one where he was working at a movie theater. Lent was working at a movie theater. He sees James. He says, "Hey, do you want to help me with some chairs? I'll give you $5." And James says, "Sure, I'll do that." He goes into the theater to help Lent, and Lent takes him at knife point, binds his hands behind his back, blindfolds James, takes him to his home, Lent's home, where he restrains him and abuses him for the night. The next morning, Lent takes James to a wooded area, ties him to a tree, continues to assault him, and murders him.
Let's not skip over the terrible details. I don't say this to make light of what happened to James, but we need to understand,
of course,
some of the details of what happened. They found some residue around his ankles and around his wrists. James was assaulted inside the movie theater after he helped Lent move the chairs. Lent had always been planning to abduct the child. He didn't have anything in hand inside the movie theater, so he went outside to his pickup truck where he had his hit kit, as all these guys do.
Mm-hmm.
Where he had a bag, rope, duct tape, candy, various other supplies, basically everything you'd never want to see. Very, very typical child abduction type kit. Goes out there, grabs the stuff, tells James to wait, comes back inside, and this is all per his confession. So it's like, it's so terrible. Why would any man wrongfully confess to this? But again, this is all we have to go by is what he says. And I hate that we have to rely on the credulity of a monster to figure out what the monster did. But he assaulted James inside the theater, bound him up, got the vehicle, somehow secreted him out of the theater, spirited him away, back some 4 hours towards western New York, back to where he lives from Massachusetts. As Kendra said, throughout the night, the assaults continued. And then in the morning, he took James out into the woods, and they can tell from the fact that James was nude and he didn't have any signs of walking through the brush or anything, that his clothes were taken after the fact, or during the murder. But yeah, James was disrobed. He was out in the cold. You got to remember that this was November. Excuse me. When was James taken again? Was it October?
So it was
October.
chilly. Mm-hmm.
So it was cold, upstate New York. Tied to a tree. The cause of death was strangulation.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that says that he did the deed took the clothes away, hoping that if he didn't strangle to death or whatever, that he would die from the cold, which is a pretty terrible thing to do to a 12-year-old boy. So now that we've kind of ripped the Band-Aid off, so to speak, on what this guy does to kids, I say that so that we understand how bad he is, because he's alive and well to this day.
Yes,
that was the abduction of James Bernardo Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and just a very sad case. And unfortunately, James would not be the last. Go ahead.
And I do just want to make mention that James is the only body that was found from these.
He was found by third parties. He was found by hunters, right?
He was found by hunters, and that is a horrible way to, one, find a body, let alone a child. And I just I put myself in their shoes, because I've seen that before, and it's very weird. It's like beyond, like your brain can't quite, you're like, what am I looking at right now?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's something that you were never meant to see. And so encountering that is actually a form of trauma that police officers have to deal with quite a bit. Everyone has spent the last 4 years, more than that, hating on police officers. But as we defund them, we also defund protectors of children, and we defund investigators of vicious crimes like these. Mm-hmm. And we defund detectives who would find out people like this, because they're still out there, right? The idea of the lurking criminal, the child predator. We know now more than ever that there's many of them out there, and they were getting away with it for a long time. In the 70s, 80s, 90s. I presume for all time, but we were having more and more of these things happen in the latter half of the 20th century. Now, technology and awareness and things like that are helping us, but make no mistake that this guy Lent is not the worst guy that has ever done this or ever will. And when you defund police and when you have an anti-police sentiment, these, it's the children who are going to suffer from that sort of thing. Yep,
the children, the victims, in this case, the children,
and we don't treat the police officers like human beings. That they have the difficult job to deal with, and they have to see things like this. We just have a standard by which we hold them accountable that's totally ridiculous, and the court of public opinion right now just judges them as guilty before they're ever innocent on everything that can go wrong in the law enforcement officer's job. I know I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but that's what we are, as we're the Pro Police True Crime Podcast. But let's get back to the case. We talked about James Lusher, 16 years old, possibly being a victim of his in 92.
Mm-hmm.
Bernardo before that in 1990. But Sara Wood is kind of the case that brought a lot of attention to this. Go ahead.
She's the next victim in the timeline. As you said, Sara was riding home from the church that her father was a pastor at, which wasn't far from her house. I believe it was like a couple of miles. She was riding her bike. She was last seen about little under a mile away from her home. Her parents were expecting her, and she obviously never showed up. So now the missing persons, the frantic the buzz around a missing child is beginning. They contact law enforcement. An extensive search goes underway with hundreds of emergency responders gathering and trying to find this little girl. They do locate her bicycle along with some of the things that she was carrying with her off the side of the road that she was last seen.
This part's kind of important because when we come to discuss the killer, he would later admit that he would drive around and he had maps of locations he liked to frequent. He basically went out searching for victims all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If he knew that a girl or a boy was in the area, then he viewed them as a prime target or someone vulnerable. He would actually indicate on his maps kind of where the neighborhood where this person plays, so that he could come back later, find them at an opportunity when they would be the most vulnerable. But on this day, Sarah is she's not far from home. She's also, I don't believe she's far from the church where her father worked, but
Correct.
she's taking her bike up a hill. She's carrying a whole bunch of stuff with her. Stuff for Vacation Bible School, posters, transparencies, coloring books, all this stuff that I think has a lot to do with school and other supplies and things like that. This was August, so usually that's a little bit too late for Vacation Bible School, but she had all this stuff with her. And that's when Lewis Lent was driving through, and just one of those terrible things that just where a person's in the wrong place at the wrong time, but also with the most wrong person in the world. And Lent claims that he saw her pushing the bike up the hill,
Mm-hmm.
took her at knife point into the vehicle, and then took her away to places unknown, used her for his own satisfaction as she pled for her life. And that somewhere out in the wilderness of Western New York, he used an improvised weapon, a bludgeon, a tree branch, to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And then he buried her somewhere. We don't know for sure that the blow to her head or wherever she was beaten actually killed her. That was one of the most distressing things when I was reading about this, is that he didn't check to make sure that she was actually dead before he buried her. One of the most horrific things you could think of, in addition to everything else, is that he might have buried her alive. But to this day, Sarah's body has never been found. And as we get into some of the details of his trial, we're going to talk about why that's especially distressing. But all of that comes about because of the next victim, or the next intended victim.
Yes. A couple years later in 1996, excuse me, I'm getting my timeline all messed up. 94. Another 12-year-old girl by the name of Rebecca Savarese. Is that how we said we were going to say it?
Rebecca Saravisi.
Savarese.
Rebecca Saravisi. You got to hear. I want to hear the music in it.
Rebecca Savarese.
There you go.
Sorry for doing this.
You can't do it. No disrespect to Rebecca at all. It's just you cannot do an Italian last name without doing the chef thing.
Did we just initiate ourselves into an Italian gang now?
Yes. Now we're in. I can't even name it. The Sicilian Mafia, right? Just the OG Sicilian Mafia.
Sure.
We're there. We're made men, by the way. It's official.
Yep. We're gonna have to come up with nicknames like Shorty and
Two Scoops.
Boy,
that.
Anyway, my brain just went completely.
She didn't like that at all. If you guys don't get the reference, and if we may take a moment just to breathe after talking about those horrific things. Last week, Kendra made a rather unfortunate gesture live on the internet. And after the show was over, she was taking phone calls from several shot callers, several high-ranking members of various, even competing gangs, trying to induct her as a full patch member of various things. And I know that right now you've got it narrowed down to kind of the Norteños and the Sureños, Mexican Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, Texas Syndicate, and Gangster Disciples. Have you maybe made a decision on which one's going to win your heart?
I can't make claim to one publicly, but you'll know. There will be signs.
Yeah.
There will be more hand gestures.
All of a sudden there'll be letter H's tattooed somewhere on her body together. Numbers that correspond to their position in the alphabet.
Just have like a 13.
Gang members are always so clever. First of all, again, just to pump the brakes a little bit on the story, but they're always so clever, right? They're always like, you see this number 4? It stands for D. D is in damn or something, you know? And they'll just think that they're so clever, but it's just like, first of all, your numbered to letter scheme It's the easiest cipher on earth. You're not exactly Zodiac here. And not only that, but I appreciate all of you guys branding each other as being members of the same criminal enterprise so that when one of you does something, we could get you all on, conspiracy or accessory before or after the fact or felony murder, as the case may be. So gangs are probably the stupidest thing, but we appreciate all that you do to telegraph to law enforcement everything that you're up to. Fantastic. Secrecy is kind of the way that I would think about going about crimes, but you guys put it on your body.
I mean, there's an entire band that named themselves after a gang, so there's that. 311.
Kendra always kind of goes the music way, but all right, so we're done pumping the brakes. I feel a little bit I was getting a little emotional, a little wound up there because how do you talk about it?
Tense when you start.
How do you talk about the stuff that happens to a child and then we're going to be trying to crack jokes at the end of the episode? It's tough to do. There's a right time to do it, but I'm glad that we're making fun of gangs. They definitely deserve to be mocked.
According to Tara and Marara, or whatever the hell her name is, there's a time and place,
There was some really bad podcasts where they're just like, how dare they make jokes about it? And
they would hate us.
They would hate us, but we're not making fun of the kids. If anything, we're going to be saving a whole bunch of hysterical hatred for this Lenny Lent or whatever his name is. I think it's Lewis Lent.
Lewis.
But, I'm even disrespecting him by not getting his name right, so it's fine with me. But
so
we're gonna be saving a lot of that for him. And also something that's interesting, just as 911 dispatchers and police officers, we mentioned this earlier, that we see things that no one's meant to see. Kendra's seen a guy that was once named Daryl, but then by the time she got to him, he was a soup. He was his integrity as a human person was more liquescent than anything else.
He was a loose man.
He was a loose man. I worked in a prison for a bit. I don't bring that up on the show a lot, but it's like prison was a hard place. I saw things that shouldn't be seen by anyone there, and frankly, every night when I go to sleep, I have dreams that I'm back in prison and I'm haunted by some of the stuff that's in there. And so Kendra and I have both seen stuff. So how do we deal with that, right? Like, you either start laughing or you start crying and then you give up. But how do you put one foot in front of the other and say, tomorrow I'm going to put on this gun and this badge and I'm going to go back to work and do it all over again, even though yesterday I found a man who was essentially a soup, or a child that was killed or neglected to death, or how am I supposed to take a 911 phone call of someone giving me their last will and testament and then hearing the shot ring out over the phone? How am I supposed to go back tomorrow and do my job and continue to do good things for good people and have a life of good consequence, but I'll carry all that inside me? And the answer is, I'm going to joke about it as often as possible because that's a coping mechanism. And at the risk of being a little too psychological, I will say this about confronting some of the problems that we deal with. Do you remember, Kendra? I don't know if this happened to you. Probably not, because you seem like one of the cool kids. But when I was young, I got bullied quite a bit. I had a lot wrong with me. None of it went away. It's just I'm just older now. I'm just the same terrible child, and now I'm just old, so I have nothing going for me. But
a terrible old child.
I'm a terrible old child. Still chubby. Still can't run. Still not popular. Still wearing shabby clothes and all this. But when someone bullied you, they had sort of a lot of authority over you. You couldn't fight back. You felt weak. You felt helpless. When they made fun of you, when they told jokes about you, it took away all your strength. We're bullying bad stuff in life. We're joking about it so that we can have that sort of power over it. So when we joke about dark things, it's us coping. It's us dealing with it. It's finding humor in situations where we can, but ultimately it's a self-preservation thing, and it's something that keeps us going in our jobs. Kendra, of course, works at a fucking box factory now, so she really deals with no stress at all. And so
except the paper cuts.
Except well, it's corrugated, folks. I don't want to joke about that. Like, she's dealing with some heavy gauge paper products over there, so even one of them could be lethal. But that's why we joke about this the way that we do. Not that this is even a particularly jokey episode, but I bring this up because we did listen to so many terrible podcasts who had this moral finger wagging about how you ought never joke about certain things. And again, in all the foregoing, we never joked about the children. But if you're someone who makes a true crime podcaster and you have no sense of humor, your show's terrible. And you're so bad that I won't even play a clip of you here. So
yeah,
I love and respect my audience too much to subject them to you.
Yeah, it irritates me a lot when people, and I don't know what podcast they were referring to because they wouldn't name the podcast, but they did mention that they didn't like the fact that they were joking about it, and it irritates me when I hear that because, like you said, John, it's just a lack of understanding on the reasons why they're making jokes, and I guarantee you that they were not joking about Sarah Wood as a child victim.
No.
Because what psychopath would do that? And if they were, then they should be ashamed of themselves. But the circumstances around it, we can make jokes. We made plenty of jokes about Colleen last week. Colleen's predicament, not her as a person.
Yeah.
But if you don't like that, then just don't listen.
Yeah. And just to be clear, this was not Andrea. These were other shows we were listening to. I know that I'm compelled by friendship to listen to Andrea's show, but I would also never get on here and talk bad about her show. So these were much more terrible shows than anything Andrea's ever laid out.
They were god awful. Every single one of them was insufferable.
Anyway, let's go to the happy part of the story. It's a harrowing but happy.
Correct.
Let's go to January 7, 1994, in the story of Rebecca Saravesi.
Yes. January 7th, 94, a couple of days before I was born, Rebecca Savarese was walking home downtown.
Walking to school.
Was she walking to school?
This all happened very early in the day.
Okay. Anyway, she was walking to school when she was approached by a man. And he basically just started walking with her and giving her direction to follow him, not to run away, etc., and so on. And Rebecca,
you see my gun, he says to her.
Yes, Rebecca has the wherewithal to realize what's going on, and she plays along for a little bit. But she's not just going as a helpless victim. She's plotting how she's going to get out of this scenario. As they turn the corner and they're walking down the block, he points to a truck that's nearby and he says, you're going to get in that truck. That's my truck. We're going to go there. He's got her by her jacket that she's wearing. He's grabbing onto it like this.
She also got a backpack on.
She does have a backpack on as well because she's going to school.
Almost kind of escorting her. It's almost an escort.
Yes. So they're walking and approaching the truck, and it's getting closer, and Rebecca's trying to figure out how she's going to get out of this. So she falls to her knees on the sidewalk and starts to have a fake asthma attack. Which is genius. As she's falling, Lewis loosens his grip and tries to grab onto her backpack. So when he releases her, he's now on her backpack, and she takes advantage of this and slips her arms out of her backpack, and now she's free. So she takes off running, finds the nearest adult, tells him what's been going on. There was an eyewitness. There were probably a couple of eyewitnesses if I had to take a guess, but one of them in particular actually got in their vehicle and followed Lewis for a while. I think
this is really good. And normally as a 911 dispatcher, I wouldn't recommend this because you're taking on a lot of risk, a lot of danger. But we're also, we're back in 1994. We don't have cell phones. So, car phones exist, but they're very expensive and a lot of people don't have them. So this guy, to get any actionable information, we actually do need to get a partial plate, description, last known direction of travel, last place we saw him, which way he was going, description of his physical person, how many people were in the car, anything unique about the vehicle, license plates, the damage, all that stuff that they teach us in the academy, make, model, year, color, anything, like I said, that's unique about the vehicle. But at one point he sees a partial license plate in the rearview mirror, which scrambles him a little bit. Most people aren't used to that, reading backwards and all that. But he's able to follow him for a little while, and this guy Lent eventually drives out of sight, gets lost to sight, and so this bystander goes over to a gas station and sees a police officer there and says, "Hey, I think I just witnessed a near abduction, and the suspect was last seen." He gives him all the pertinent details. Well, of course, Rebecca, fled to the business owner who I think was plowing some snow off of his walk, and he contacts the police right away. So communications right away is getting a report from a victim who says, "Hey, I escaped from this attempted abduction," and this police officer is taking a walk-up report from someone who says see that I saw the same thing in the same place at about the same time. And so we've got really, really, really good information. In fact, sometimes today, even with cell phones, we don't necessarily have a lot of corroboration. We don't necessarily have victims and witnesses agreeing so closely to the same thing. In fact, sometimes we get such disparate reports of things that we're not sure that they're related at all, or we find out just things are just completely wrong. Case in point, recently, we had a major critical incident that involved a black Honda or whatever, and we even had the license plate because the victim was able to take a picture of it, which is great. But then as the radio traffic's going on, we got all these police officers out canvassing the area for it. All of a sudden I'm hearing police officers saying, yeah, be on the lookout for this. It's this Chevy Impala white in color. I'm just like, what game of telephone are we playing where I am talking to everyone, but no one can agree what color the vehicle is, So it's that's just fog of war type stuff. I like this when we have a lot of information. People aren't sure. Someone gets something wrong and then they pass it on, and all of a sudden the water gets muddied very quickly. But this is great, right? We've got a victim who got away, who had a little bit of time to get a look at him. We've got this guy that followed him for a while. He's got a description of the suspect, which is great. They know kind of what he looks like, how he's dressed. I think he had a hat pulled down over his head. So it's one of those common things. And Rebecca is able to give what we used to use a lot more often, which is a composite sketch of what the guy looks like. We don't really use that anymore. But so what happened is that we have this report of this attempted child abduction. We've got a good description of the vehicle, a blue pickup truck with a white cab, a partial plate. Here's something that's very interesting, Kendra, and if it's different where you are, because you worked for a bigger sheriff's office than I do, and you probably have a lot more technology and assets that I have, but this has been the case for me, even to the point where I had a detective straight up ask me, but what do you do with a partial plate? In a movie, you just type it in saying, oh, Buick Century, Lincoln X-ray Ida 48, and then it tells you all the Lincoln X-ray Ida 48, like Lincoln X-ray Ida 481. 482, 483. I actually don't have the ability to do that. I know that the Department of Motor Vehicles would probably be able to generate a list like that, but that's a state database, and I work for the county, so I actually don't have that database. I mean, I can just run all of them. If I have if I have the beginning of the plate, I can run everything. It might take me some time, but I could do that depending on how long the plate is or could be.
Right.
But like if it's like a personalized plate, a lot of times I'm just having to guess, would they have spelled this with a 1, with an I, a 0, an O, and it's just all of a sudden the permutations take on this unrealistic dimension of me being able to find this vehicle. So they have a partial plate. They're not able to narrow it down to exactly where this registered vehicle would be located, the home address for the vehicle. If the guy had gotten the complete plate, this would be wrapped up a little sooner. But we put out a BOLO, be on the lookout. This is information that goes out to police departments, sheriff's departments, every law enforcement agency in the area. Be on the lookout for this vehicle, and it's got all the particulars in there and why. Comes out over teletype. Dispatchers get that. They distribute it to roll call, briefings, intelligence, detectives. Everybody gets to find out about this, so that we're all being on the lookout. Well, one detective in particular takes it upon himself to go look for this vehicle, and it could be in the area, right? Like it's just because this happened downtown or on the way to this person's school or whatever, doesn't mean this guy lives around the corner. In fact, although geographic profiling is a thing, and it's something that is very helpful, particularly with any kind of serial case, that they have areas that they're comfortable with, places where they live, places they like to hunt. We talked about that with Go-Go Beach, right? Like this guy in particular had a place that he liked to dump bodies. In fact, it was such a good place to dump bodies that other serial killers were dumping bodies along the same stretch of road out in Long Island. So geographic profiling is a thing. It can be helpful. But if you're looking for, a needle in a haystack, it's not necessarily something that's going to give you action right away. So this guy goes out and he just, in the words of Wolverine in the X-Men movie, he goes, how am I going to find her? The traditional way. I'm going to look. So he goes out and looks for the vehicle. And he comes across it, parked at a house, and he sees that this is the description of the vehicle and that the partial plate matches. So he's like, hot damn. So the detective goes and gets a police officer to go with him because, this is how it goes wrong in the movie, right? The detective just knocks on the door, doesn't tell dispatch he's there. The guy answers with the gun, blows him away, buries the detective in the backyard. And, then the movie goes on for another 90 minutes. Which is a long time in movie time. But anyway, so he gets a police officer to go with him. They go to this house. They find that this guy that owns the truck is a blind guy.
He's blind. Yeah.
So my question to you, Kendra,
Yes.
Because there's no small crimes, there's no petty crimes. I know that you're this kind of deputy. There's no small infractions. There's only the law. Is this guy who's blind updating the registration on that truck? I mean, why would he do that? Why would you pay taxes for a truck that you can't even drive? I just wondered if the plates were expired, or if that was, that wouldn't even. The interesting thing about expired plates is that wouldn't even necessarily give you independent, reasonable suspicion to make contact with the person because it's not driving around. In most jurisdictions, it doesn't matter if you have an expired plate in a driveway. In some places, it does, but obviously he's going on the intelligence from the bolo to make contact. But I wonder what you thought about those expired plates. She didn't think a goddamn thing about it.
No, because you're not going to do anything about it if a vehicle is parked, and
No.
if it's driving, all you're going to do is write a ticket if you do that at all.
But that's the unique insight you get from this podcast, and none of those other chumps. You're getting insight.
It's definitely not probable cause to interact with somebody. You have to. I mean, unless they're driving the vehicle, obviously. If it's parked in a driveway, it's not. Yeah.
This is the difference between Florida and wherever the hell I work, because where I work is so poor that if we see a license plate not paid for, that's exigent circumstances. We may not be able to fulfill the budget and pay the cops. So we go in there, get the guy a fine, even if we have to shake him down, search his couch, search his pockets, we're getting that change. And we're going to keep the sheriff's office open tomorrow. So,
well, I don't really have a funny quip about the blind man with the truck. I was trying to think of one because when I read it, I was like, it made me laugh.
Blind people are funny. His mom was also
Disabled
blind.
People make me laugh, apparently. Not really. No, that's a callback to another episode.
I just paused so that I could cut the reel easier. Sometimes if I start talking right away, it makes it harder to edit. So I just wanted to stop so that when I have you saying, I think disabled people are hilarious. That way it's easier. And even though I just said the same thing, I will not appear in a reel saying.
Oh my God.
I know, it's harsh.
I'm a cop that spit in people's mouths. I think disabled people are funny, and apparently I'm in a gang now. Don't do that. Let me tell you.
Watch True Crime Tuesday, 8/7 Central.
Let me tell you about this blind man in his truck, okay? Because I know you're probably wondering, why the hell would a blind man need a vehicle? Yeah? Well, apparently this Lent fellow was working for this blind man as a handyman, and I think the truck was part of the deal. So this is why this guy has a truck, is to hire. He has a business. I'm pretty sure he owns a business, or he's something of the other. What is wrong with me today?
It's because you're nervous from being in the gang.
I'm not. Palms are sweaty. Knees are heavy. I forget the lyrics. Mom's
Choking
spaghetti.
Down your mom's spaghetti. I don't know. I was never a big Eminem guy.
Anyway, so that's why. But yes, this detective locates the truck. He gathers all the information needed. They go and they make contact with. Eventually, they make contact with Lewis Lent. And he is apprehended and taken to jail. He is interviewed for, I believe, I heard 3 days, but I didn't find that anywhere. So it sounds a little insane to me. Where he was interrogated.
He was apprehended within 3 days?
No, he was once he was taken into custody, he was interviewed for 3 days.
Oh, well, I believe what I heard is that he was very, very chatty, and that, of course, they talked to him. His initial thing was like, oh, yeah, I was driving that truck later today, but I just got into town. I haven't been here that long. And as they continue to talk to him, of course, they search the vehicle. They find the tape inside. I think they even found her backpack inside.
They found her backpack. Well, he had 2 vehicles. He had the truck that he tried to abduct her in. Excuse me, my eyes. But he also had a van. And inside the van was the backpack. And I'm assuming he put that in there because he did not think that they would search the van. Because he's been doing this, allegedly, and he probably understood a little bit of how it works and knew that they would be searching the truck because that was the vehicle that somebody would identify it. That's pure speculation. I have no idea. Because why wouldn't you just chuck the backpack somewhere else? I don't know.
Well, this guy was definitely cocky and overconfident. If he's just going to jump out of a car, pick up some girl walking down the road, grab her, point a gun at her, get in the car. You know, I get that he's had success before, even with taking, you know, if he is responsible for the abduction of James Lusher, he's taking 16-year-old boys. You'd think that a 12-year-old girl would be easy pickings for a guy like him,
Right.
but he is a little bit overconfident, right? And he's not a trophy keeper, so I have to wonder why he did keep the backpack as well. But to me, I mean, that's ironclad, right? He's got this girl's backpack that places him at the crime. He couldn't come by that backpack no other way, which she said it was taken off by my abductor. We've got eyewitnesses saying that. The guy that followed the truck, the license plate matches, the description matches. The guy even looks like the composite sketch, open and shut. But the thing is he likes to talk. He likes talking about everything that's going on. In fact, we'll dive into a little bit of that more deeply as we talk about how he messes with families. But it doesn't take much, right? Like they're talking to him, and then the next day he's saying, well, you know, I have blackouts sometimes, and I don't always remember things, which we were all just rolling our eyes. I'm like, we've all seen this movie, you know, we all know about this. And
blackouts and voices. And
I think voices, alternate personalities, and we're just like, okay, yeah.
That he named after himself, which is hilarious.
It's just some sort of like the crappiest David Fincher movie ever. Is that what we're in right now? Come on, man. None of us are falling for it. So he goes to trial. I believe he gets convicted. He's getting life in prison. He's going to sentencing. This is all very important. I don't just mention this to like talk and fill up time.
Right.
He's getting sentenced. He knows he's going to prison for the rest of his life. This is in Massachusetts. This is in for the abduction of or the attempted abduction of Rebecca, right? And was that in Massachusetts? Just to clarify. Anyway, he's going to prison for the attempted abduction of her. So it's not going to be necessarily, I mean, we're not talking capital anyway, because it's Massachusetts or wherever it is. Even New York doesn't have that, but going away for a long time. And when he's in the sentencing phase, he's about to get sentenced. Tells his lawyer, tells his attorney, I guess he tells the court, which seems like a hell of a way to do this, because ordinarily you would not do this. But he goes like, yeah, I want to confess to Sara Wood as well. And why is this interesting to me? Couple reasons. Number one, the linear model says he's got guilty information about Sara Wood, a highly publicized case, a case that happened nearby where he lives. Like I said, Sara got a lot of press. But if this guy likes talking, like I said he did, he was, although he said a lot of stupid and fake things, he seemed to be one of these Brian Coey guys where he kind of liked the attention from the police.
Oh, yeah.
He liked that 100%. Stuff. He liked talking about what he did. In fact, all the details that we have about everything that happened to Sara Wood, about how he was driving along. By the time he saw her, she was pushing the bike, not riding it. You know, all the details of the gruesome assault, hitting her with the branch, possibly burying her alive. All the details on this. He likes to talk.
He also, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't know if you're probably getting to this, but
I am. I always get to things.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Make me feel terrible when you look at me that way. No, what I'm saying is just that he, you know, what I'm building up to is that he may be trying to take credit for this. Now, here's the thing. Contrary to movies and TV shows, you cannot just say, I did this crime too. And the judge says, really? Did you do it? And he goes, oh, yeah, I did it. Guilty. You're done. No, when you elocute to a crime, when you confess, even when you plead guilty, the state's attorney's office is still compelled to put forward evidence that corroborates your confession. You cannot just go forward and say, yeah, I took the Lindbergh baby and I killed Jimmy Hoffa. Court's not going to take those confessions into any kind of consideration unless the prosecutor has evidence to back it up, or unless you can also produce evidence that incontrovertibly associates you with the crime, which is usually going to be some kind of direct evidence, right? Whether it's the clothing off of the children, blood, anything that you've seen in forensic files, cold case files, anything like that, anything that's really going to link you to the case. So he can't just say, yeah, I took Sara Wood too. He's got to have some sort of guilty information, something that likely has not been released to the press. But I wonder, because he likes having the credit so much, the way that he behaved during the sentencing after he pled guilty to the murder of abduction and murder of Sara Wood, we begin the drama, right? So this guy knows that he's going to prison for the rest of his life. He pled guilty to it, provided this information. But the family wants Sarah's body back, and they make a very compelling case. Like, this is a Christian family. Her father was a Presbyterian pastor. Sarah, by all accounts, beautiful, wonderful girl, giving girl, good spirit, good Christian kid. And the family is endowed with certain Christian beliefs, like forgiveness for even the most egregious sins, for the most egregious transactions, right? Like if you're a Christian, you believe that each of us is as guilty as any other in terms of our sin, and that we all need forgiveness from each other if we're going to ask for it from God. So this is where this Presbyterian family is coming from. He's not moved by any of that shit. He doesn't care about any of it. They even asked for his sentencing to be delayed. Like, this family is going through hell. They don't believe Sarah's alive, but they're not reunited with her. Sarah's got an older brother and an older sister. Her older brother, Dusty, makes personal appeals to him, saying, we know that Sarah's safe in heaven. You don't really have power over us, but the right thing to do is to tell us where she is. The family implores the judge, the prosecutor, everybody to hold off, saying, like, give him a chance to think about this, that he can do anything, because this is right when we have the most power, right? Like, as soon as we lock him up and throw away the key, we have nothing that we can use to compel him to ever tell the truth. So let's dangle this carrot in front of him for as long as possible. Do the right thing. Tell us where Sarah is. We can make an accommodation for you if you don't want to go to Walpole, which is one of Massachusetts' most infamous prisons. Maybe we could extradite you somewhere. We could put you in federal custody somewhere a little bit cushier, a little bit nicer. You could have your say. So all of these things can be arranged in a plea bargain or some kind of agreement, right? This all drags on. He enjoys it. Doesn't care. Doesn't matter to him that, functionally his life is over, that he doesn't get to do his favorite thing anymore, which is abducting and murdering children, God willing. Something I mention a lot is that people who go to prison never really stop committing crimes. They only get to commit crimes on each other and on correctional officers. But so for whoever who thinks that this guy Lent went to prison and was somehow emasculated of his deviancy, or made to be penitent, or was somehow corrected or rehabilitated, I laugh at you for thinking such things, and about any criminal really. But he didn't care. And since that time, he has given a lot of clues, said a lot of things. She's buried by water. She's buried by this lake. She's buried under an X. She's next to this thing, that thing. He really gets off on dangling these things out. And I think on more than one occasion, they've been like, we'll make a deal with you, Lewis. Take us to her. And of course, it's a field trip for him. He loves getting outside, getting out of the fresh beauty of the Adirondack Mountains. He gets to have a day outside of the prison walls, and lead investigators to nowhere, because to this day we have not recovered the remains of Sarah. And some say that he has given us clues, that he's just waiting for us to put the things together like it's a movie. But others have said it's because she's a part of a mass grave, and that there's other children there that he doesn't want us to find.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he mentions during all of this that he gave investigators a spot, like you said, near water. And then he later, after they went and couldn't find her, he was like, oh, yeah, actually, she's somewhere else, but I can't tell you because she's buried near another body that I never want you to find, basically. Like, so he's got something else going on, or, he's doing these false confessions, or some, I don't know. It's all he's got a big, disgusting set of nuts on him. First of all, to ever do this, but then to behave in this fashion, like, it just doesn't make sense, right? You'd think that if he wants to get away with things, he wouldn't talk as much as he does. He wouldn't say, I definitely killed Sarah Wood. Right. He likes riding this tension of saying, I did it and you don't get to know, because that's exactly where he's been for 30 years. He's had plenty of time to discuss the location of this girl's body, to finally give the family some quantum of peace about it. He won't do it because he loves not telling. And we only found James Bernardo because hunters came across him. He was displayed rather horrifically and conspicuously. But the other victims, luckily Rebecca got away. Sarah still missing. James Lusher, someone else that he's taking credit for. We don't know if he killed James Lusher or not. This is really, really unfortunate. So he rides that line, right? Like that tension between I did it, but I won't tell you anything else. Yes. What's the problem, Kendra? We have all these other missing kids from the mid 80s to the mid 90s when he was active, all over this very, very densely populated area, right? The Northeast, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Rhode Island,
Connecticut, New York. Who knows how many kids were taken in those 10 years? And although I hate rampant speculation, this guy was in, his 40s when the stuff was going on with Sarah Wood and all this. That's just not the pattern we see with people where they're normal and then one day they break and they're sexual freaks. We know that this always starts with like somebody who's a voyeur and someone who's like becomes a sexually awakened in a disturbing way. And, the old story, torturing animals, escalation, all that BTK Golden State shit that you expect from people to just get worse and worse and worse to the point where he feels like he can get Rebecca Saravisi right there on the street. So reverse engineer that. Go back the entirety of his life to when he first became sexually active or on his own or able to go out and have the independence to do whatever he wants to other human beings. And it's just, we can't believe that it's just 3. We can't believe that it's just 4 or 5. There's probably more out there. I mean, he's so active. You look at this, 1990, 92, 93, 94. He's doing this at least, like once per year.
Once a year.
He's probably doing it more, and because of the way the kids went missing, particularly the times of technology, when kids aren't basically their locations not low jacked, and we can't get in touch with them at all times. That's just the way it was growing up too. If you didn't know where someone was, you looked for them for a while. You tried to find where their bike was or whatever, and then, eventually you caught up with them. That's just sort of how it was. But so, like I said, he rides this tension to where he may have taken credit because he wants the credit. He wants the notoriety. He wants to be known as the guy that did these horrible things. But he also doesn't want to reveal too much. And so I think he's right on that line. I think that he knows that anytime he wants, possibly on his deathbed or whatever, he could reveal, say, oh yeah, Tammy McCormick, did you want to know about Tammy? And all of a sudden he's relevant again. Somebody's talking to him again. I think that this is probably his way of keeping federal investigators on a leash. This is something I hearken back into a lot, but John Douglas, the mine hunter, he would go and talk to these guys and these serial cases, and they would have a lot to say. And I think it's possible that he's holding a lot of cards, a lot of guilty information that he can use to parse it out. And of course, if he's going on field trips and taking people to nowhere, to where Sarah is not, the only thing that we can do is ignore him, to not give him what he wants, the attention, which means we have to willingly close the door and say, we're not going to find Sarah, but we're not going to indulge this maniac by giving him his cheap sexual thrill, the thing that he's going to use to relax before he falls asleep, leading on investigators about it. So they have to ignore him and not give him what he wants, which is the attention. Kendra, you've had probably like 4 or 5 good points that I've been on.
Well, I kind of have to backtrack a little bit when you were talking about this is not him just waking up one day and becoming a sexual deviant, because he does mention to investigators at one point that he had this plan that he was going to kidnap like between 9 and 11, or he gave some sort of number like that, girls between the ages of 12 and 17, when they're just developing, which is disgusting. And he wanted to keep them confined to a room that he was constructing within the home. And just like that fucking guy that took Colleen Stan. He wants to have his own little rape and torture room. Exactly. And that's what he was planning to do, where he could just have his pick of the litter that he created whenever he wanted. And he wasn't quite done constructing it when he committed Sarah's abduction and James's. So he referred to them as kind of like quickies. So it was like a,
he could do what he wanted with them, but he had no storage capability. So he had to get rid of them.
And when they served a search warrant on his house, they found evidence of this room. I don't know exactly what it was listed as construction. That was conclusive to this dungeon that he was claiming to have been building. So you don't get to that point overnight. This guy has probably been, this guy has been brewing and escalating and developing over the course of a lifetime. Like you said, he was in his 40s when he got caught, but we don't know what the hell he was doing up until that point. And I'm sure that if he did commit these abductions and murders, there are many, many more, and that control aspect of keeping the investigators on a short leash, it's like a chase almost. And we see this in a couple of other, well, many other cases for whatever reason, especially with child murderers. I'm not sure why this is a thing with them. Obviously, they're very predatorial, and they like to basically fuck with people and have control over them from the inside out. And I think this is just one more way to do that, because they are being chased. They've got something that the rest of the world wants, and they like having that power of knowing, well, they're never going to know unless I decide they're going to know. And tormenting the families is just one more way to keep them connected to their victims. It happens all the time. It's disgusting, but it is very common. And I think it's possible that, like you said, you said it very well. I think he's admitting to things that he didn't do and not admitting to things that he did do.
Yeah.
Some stuff is probably, obviously he attempted Rebecca's abduction. That's obvious. Sara Wood, we can't say for sure that he did. He was convicted of her murder.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
I honestly think that's what it was. And I don't think he was disconnected from the case, because like I said, he had to have something to elocute to at his conviction. He had to say,
Right.
I plead to this. He has to give a detail of his crime. That's what his elocution is. There has to be some sort of evidence to back it up from the prosecutor or the police or something for the court to accept it. Sara Wood is the most infamous case. Case in point, he knows he's going to prison for a long time, and he mentions Sara Wood. Why? Why wasn't it James Bernardo?
Right.
Why wasn't it Tammy McCormick? Why wasn't it James Lusher? Why was it Sara? And it was Sara, because Sara was the most publicized, right? He can instantly get notoriety by saying, hey, you guys know Sara Wood, the one that's on all the milk cartons and all the posters and on America's Most Wanted and all this? That's me.
Yep.
He instantly gets that. Now, so he gets the instant notoriety, the instant recognition, the instant association with Sara, who beloved. He gets to be associated with her. But did he do it? And the reason why I suggest maybe he didn't is because he's changed his story. He said various different things about Sara Wood. Sometimes he's even recanted the confessions. You take back so you can give again, I guess. But I think it's possible he possesses some criminal information about it because he knows who did do it. And so this action of taking credit for it has two prongs, right? He gets the instantaneous glory for himself, the notoriety, like I said. But also, if he's convicted of it, he's taking the heat or the pressure or the rap for somebody else that he knows, so that they can continue to get away with it and live their life. Like he's already used up. He's going to prison anyway. He might as well take the rap for as much as possible. Once he's achieved that life sentence, right? He's good for anything. Yeah. But he doesn't actually know the location of Sara Wood. And that's why he could just say, oh yeah, I know where she is. And he could constantly allude to these things. And we care so much about Sara that we're willing to indulge this maniac in finding out the answers from him. But it's possible that, he just has some general idea or knows something about it because he's buddies with someone that does this. And the reason why I throw this out there, and this is kind of like where I'm skirting a line that maybe shouldn't be skirted, but so that house he lives at, where he's building these bunks for these teenage girls that is going to essentially keep his concubines in his house in a very much in a Colleen Stan style of containment and torture and all this and assault. He's living with his nephew the whole time. Right. So when people live together, like when Kendra and I used to, live together as a married couple, we knew all each other's weird stuff. Right. Like, Kendra only brushes her teeth with rubbing alcohol. Bizarre. But she's got the cleanest teeth of anyone I've ever met. Right. Not a big deal. Nobody cares. It's not criminal. Believe me, I checked Florida statutes on that. It's not a big deal. Gargles, witch, Hazel 2. Terrible to kiss goodbye in the morning. Stop doing it like right away. So anyway. Well, it's not a mystery that we're not together anymore, Kendra. But when you live together, you know things about each other. And you're going to tell me this guy has like a heavy-duty construction project going on in his room power tools or manual tools or whatever, and his there's a padlock on the outside of the room, and no one knows anything. I think if you're living with a like-minded person, they don't necessarily care about what's going on. They're at least going to look the other way if you guys are like-minded. And I think like-minded people tend to attract each other. I think it's a myth that it was the internet that first brought nuts like these together. I think they can recognize each other. I think like recognizes like, and I think these people more
gang
often than not,
recognizes gang.
they did. Yes, you know how to recognize gangs now. I'm sure that you're getting confirmation bias all the time. I just think it's highly likely. I'm not saying definitively, but the first thing when I was reading about this is just like, I'm not convinced that he did it, because it's just the timing of it, right? He's already going to be sentenced for this thing with Rebecca Saravisi, and then goes, oh yeah, also I'm associated with a much more high profile case. Why would he do that? And
it
then
doesn't make any sense.
Why would he plead to something and then not use it to his advantage at all? Right. And it's just because he wanted the notoriety. So I wonder, that's my final word on whether or not this guy murdered Sara Wood. I wonder if it's possible that her abductor and killer may not be this disgusting person, possibly the most punchable face I've ever seen, with his Coke bottle glasses, his nearsightedness, and his douchey mustache. Just
he looks like the guy from Trailer Park Boys. I forget his name.
Yeah, I've never seen that show, but I do know who you're talking about from memes. But in a totally non-funny way, this guy, his mother just should have swallowed him. He's an absolute waste. He's horrible, disgusting person that he would do these things. And to this fucking day, he will not come clean. He will not do the right thing. He is in prison. You'd think that prison would be persuasive, that would change him, that would make him want to do something. You'd think that a conscience would beckon after 30 years. Feels nothing for these children. Feels great about it. He's happy about it. He's laughing in your face. If you care about those kids, he's laughing in your face, because that's the way that he treats it. He won't just do the decent thing. He'll admit to it because he likes the notoriety. He won't tell you where Sara is. He knows where she is. He claims to. Might know someone who knows where she is. She's still gone from the earth. Her family today still doesn't know where she is. She was born in 1981. She'd be like 43 years old today.
Yeah.
We don't know where she is. She should be alive and having a whole bunch of kids driving her nuts. Where is she? We don't know, because of this motherfucker right here. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care about doing the right thing. And it's not just Sara either. There are others. God knows however many others. But if there was any good, I will say that I've said this before, that I believe that God uses all of man's evil for his ultimate good, and that we're so small and our perspective is so limited by our finite lives and our just, we can only see what's just around us. We can't see the master plan. We can't see the insight of 8 billion people on the planet from the beginning of time to the end of time. But one good thing that has come out of Sara's abduction is that through attention to missing and exploited children, we've set up a lot of different types of infrastructure, information sharing, public interest. I know to this day there's still bike rides and things like that in memory of Sara. I know that when the year that she should have graduated from high school, 99 or whatever, that a memorial was kept for her at her school. People keep her memory alive. And something that's interesting is that since Sara was taken, and since the massive search for her began, and lots of good people in the community came together to search for a little girl, which is a decent thing, and that it, like Mr. Rogers said on 9/11, he goes, just look, you'll see people helping. Something bad happens and you'll see the helpers. And so the death of Sara, the abduction of Sara, brought out people to help and to do good things and to show people like Lent that he's alone. I don't know if he'll ever get it because he's a monster, but the people are good on the planet. The people will do things, and a reduction overall in missing children, something like 30%, which is nothing to scoff at. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, I'm not going to throw stats at you, but it was some years ago that they said, some 11,000 kids, 11,000 children have been at some point missing or exploited, or someone who's in a circumstance like Sara. It's something like 7,500 of them have been found because of basically the institutions and interest that Sara's case generated. So,
and that is a lot. That's a big number as well. Even though out of 11,000, you'd hope that 11,000 would be found, but that's just not reality. And the work that it takes to find one child, for them to find 7,500, that's amazing. That's 7,500 lives that were spared. So
great case.
That's
Emotional. Anytime I get mad, that makes for a good podcast, I guess. People like it when I get mad. And people also like it when I'm silly. So
I like it when you get mad too.
Yeah, you do. That's why even though like our marriage was eroding on day one, like you let it go for years because it was just a lot of fun for you.
It was entertaining for me, for sure.
It was entertaining, yes, seeing me break down into depression as the foundation beneath me crumbled. That was real fun for us. So anything else, Kendra, before we take off?
Thank you guys for listening every week. I really have enjoyed connecting with you guys and getting to know some of you on a personal level. It is a great joy in my life to guide you through these horrid cases with sometimes a smile on my face, sometimes a scowl. And I do love you all. Sans gang signs. Also, John's okay.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing she has said to me in years. That's okay. This podcast is a form of healing for us both. And I'm sorry if you were put off last week when I said that the audience was stupid. I misspoke. I don't know what I meant to say instead. Thank you. You give us the energy to go on. This actually was going to be my last episode until that happened. So thank you. That means that next week, however, is my last episode. Goodbye. Good night, America.
Goodbye.
Be well. Stay safe. Do not get yourself true crimed.
Unless
Goodbye,
you want
Will.
it.
Unless you want to. That's another way to make the show. If you want to become like a ridiculous victim of a terrible crime.
There you go. Love you.